Another week in the NFL, week 2. Time to go around the league, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was an interesting game. I think most people, especially us, we kind of expected it to be a little bit more high scoring. Um, it was a very close game, obviously, by the score at the end, but wasn't too high scoring in this one. It was the return of Chris Jones and Travis Kelce. But Travis, outside of the touchdown, not too crazy of a game for him. I also got some penalties there. He was getting into it with the Jags on defense. On the other side, though, Chris Jones, he did make some plays. He got 1.5 sacks, so his presence was felt. But yeah, overall, this was okay. Obviously, you only allowed 9 points by the Jaguars with that offense, that receiving core, and the running backs that they have, led by Trevor Lawrence. That's impressive, but I wouldn't say this game was insanely impressive by the Chiefs to me.
Yeah, this is one that I think that the Chiefs would probably like to move on from. I think this was they had some shining things, right? You have Sky Moore with a much better game than last week. Isaiah Pacheco looked a little better. But yeah, I mean, you hold the Jags to 9, which is good. Jags really struggled in the red zone last week against the Colts. They went 3 for 3 in the red zone. I think they were like 0 for 4 this time. Really rough performance for them. Some of that comes down to some football IQ issues. Not to say that the players are like dumb, or just unlucky. Good Chiefs defense, honestly. They kept forcing Zay Jones to be in the back of the end zone. So every time he caught a touchdown, he couldn't get both feet in. And it just kind of sucked. And maybe he had a chance. He had a monster two-toe tap last week. And so I know he can do it, but it just wasn't working out. Had a lot of plays like that. Calvin Ridley ends up slamming into the goal post at the back. So unlucky things for them in the red zone. But yeah, holding the Jags to 9, but only putting up like 17 and having as many turnovers as they had in this game. It was just crazy. I mean, every time one team fumbled, it felt like it didn't matter, right? Because the next team was going to fumble again anyway. So bad game from Trevor Lawrence. I think honestly gives the Chiefs a lucky break here. All it takes is for the Jags to convert like 2 of those red zone trips, and they take this victory. So weird game. I lost my pick on this one, and I was wrong thinking it'd be a high scoring game too. But some shining parts for each team. Moving back to, with another Dallas New York matchup, this one went about just as well as it went for New York last week, as Dallas to pick up a 30-10 victory over the Jets. Obviously, the Jets pulled out that win over the Bills. Had some shining things on defense, some good offensive looks. Dallas come out and put those hopes to bed. CeeDee Lamb has a monster game. Tony Pollard and Dak have pretty great games. Dallas's defense holds the Jets to 10 points. Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, we just mentioned Dalvin Cook in our Vikings video. Obviously was a big factor for the Vikings a lot of time. Neither of these running backs were big factors here. I weren't able to get anything going. And Dallas ends up being 70-10 against New York in these past 2 weeks as they've just shut down the 2 New York offenses.
So we did both pick the Cowboys last week. We pretty much figured obviously Dallas is the better team here. With Aaron Rodgers being out, of course, Zach Wilson coming in. We did talk about how the formula for Cooper Rush for last year would kind of be what the formula would be for Zach Wilson. That didn't really matter when you're going up against a team that's a lot more competent than you were yesterday in the Cowboys. So yeah, the main thing for the Jets is that they just couldn't get anything. I mean, punt, all over the place, interceptions here and there. Their last 3 drives were all picks by Zach Wilson. They had one long drive that actually got points. 11 plays, 59 yards, results in a field goal near the end of the half. And then 1 play touchdown to Garrett Wilson, which at that point, it at least seemed like, okay, even though they hadn't really done anything on their previous drives, it at least seemed like, okay, they got an explosive play here. So maybe that'll get them back into it, but it didn't. The running back situation there, we talked about Dalvin Cook in the last video, not being in New York. Not much better over here either. Just 4 carries for 7 yards, and Breece Hall was especially not happy about his carries. 4 carries for 9 yards. Michael Carter got half of the carries that they did, and Zach Wilson was actually a leader in rushing. So, yeah, I don't think the Jets will look this bad every week, but it's going to be an uphill battle. I mean, we do have to give credit to the Cowboys. The Cowboys I would say this is probably the best that they've looked in a while. Maybe 20. I won't say 2020, definitely not that year, but probably 2018 ish, maybe, or some parts of 2021, some parts of last year. But I'd say this is the best they looked in a while. Obviously, they put up a lot of points, um, but defensively, that's really what led them to the victory here. Dak, he was good, 250 yards, no turnovers, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he had a good game. The running game overall wasn't amazing, but yeah, the Cowboys, I don't see how you can't be impressed of how they looked. So you definitely have to give them a lot of credit there. Then we move over to the Sunday night game where we saw Miami defeat the Patriots 24-17 to move to 2-0. This game pretty much was another really good offensive output for the Dolphins. Not as crazy as it was against the Chargers. Chargers defense, I think, obviously was they got a lot of dudes on that defense for sure. I mean, you can list the all pros all over the place, but overall, they did not have the best game against the Dolphins last week. Patriots defense a little bit better of a performance here, but yeah, Tua had another good game. Just had one touchdown and one pick, but 250 yards. Raheem Mostert, he was really leading the way there with 120 yards. So Tyreek Hill, he didn't get 200 yards in this game. Again, I think 2,000 in the season is unrealistic, but yeah, it was just a good offensive output, and they were able to get some stops there at the end of the game. So yeah, I'd say even though they didn't have like the most amazing game, you can't really expect that every single week from the Dolphins. It's a good win for them as they move to 2-0.
Yeah, and the Patriots, it's not all doom and gloom for them either. I mean, definitely two disappointing losses, but a lot of it is because they come to life at the last second and they start to fight back when the game's almost over. Too little, too late against both the Eagles and the Dolphins so far. I don't think they're in a super panic mode kind of thing either right now, but they need to show a little more fight in the other parts of the game. Obviously, I would not have rooted for the Patriots in this game, so I'm glad they didn't find life until the end of the game. But that is something I think that we could see maybe convert to some wins for them if they can perform as they do in the late halves of the games as they have in the early part. So rough thing for them is just not getting it together until it's too late. Though they do almost convert a crazy fourth down at the end. Strange's knee does hit just before the line. As a Dolphin supporter, happy for that one. But um, Bill Belichick still doing his trickery. They had a blocked punt, which was a blocked field goal, I think, which was a good showing for them. Jason Sanders again for the Dolphins misses another kick. This time, it's not quite as bad, but it still leaves the door open for the Patriots. It's almost actually exactly the same, where it allows for another team to try to come in and get a win. So it had a wide left field goal, but good game for the Dolphins. Don't expect them to do as well as they did every week, like against the Chargers, as Darren said. But this was a good win. And then we have another divisional rivalry in the AFC North this time with the Ravens and Bengals. Terrence and I both thought that the Bengals would bounce back from their woes, but they would still not overcome the Ravens, and that did occur. Bengals eventually looked better than they did, way better than they did against Cleveland, but it was not enough to get past Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Big thing for the Ravens is Lamar Jackson gets into the end zone a few times this time, not on the ground, but throws 2 touchdowns. Gus Edwards has a good game. That was something they were missing last week in that win. Is that actually none of the touchdowns that actually come from Lamar himself got him to the line, and somebody else put it in. So big for them is getting Lamar to get those 2 touchdowns in. Nelson Aguilar actually leads the Ravens in receiving and gets a touchdown. Not something that I would have expected to hear. And then Mark Andrews comes back from injury and is able to get a touchdown. The connection between Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers has still been really good. Odell does, I believe, go down in this game, unfortunately. So we'll
Yep.
see how that goes as far as his health and longevity side. But yeah, Bengals start to get it together somewhat. Joe Burrow has an okay game, not the most efficient game. And then T. Higgins does have a bounce back game, and Jamar Chase, 5 receptions, 31 yards. Not exactly what we expect out of a guy like Jamar Chase. So Bengals have some things to improve. Only losing by 3 is probably the impressive thing when you're thinking about how this game was going. Had a defensive touchdown. There just wasn't a lot of offense for the Bengals yet. Again, I've said this about every team that's been 0-2. I'm not quite sure it's time to panic. The Bengals started 0-2 last year as well, but I do think that the Ravens came out and showed that they're a better team, and they finally were able to put all those graphics away of the Bengals streak against the Ravens. Joe Burrow and the Bengals didn't have quite as good of a time against the Ravens starters.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be frustrating for both teams. Obviously, now Odell's hurt. I mean, they still got weapons for Baltimore, but he literally just got back, and if he's going to be out for a little bit, that's going to be frustrating. And then J.K. Dobbins, obviously, he's out. He's missed a lot of time since he got drafted. I mean, he's good when he's there, but he's just been really limited, with injuries and just hasn't played too much. So was interested to see, and I'll be interested to see how the running game goes going forward. Lamar's going to run the ball, so that's not really an issue. But obviously, taking away part of that, 1-2 punch that you had back there, with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Now that Justice Hill, he's going to have to step up a little bit, get some more runs in there. So yeah, it's the Ravens, and it's just kind of funny. It seems like every year they get some kind of injuries at some point, and the injury list just piles up. That's really the main thing that ends up stopping them every year. It seems like for the past few years now. Um, so if they're able to overcome, in spite of injuries, right now they and the Dolphins are the only 2-0 teams in the AFC. So I think the Ravens will be good going forward. The Bengals, they got some things to figure out. If Joe Burrow, they say he re-aggravated his calf. If he's going to be limited in some fashion, then they've got an issue. Because if Joe Burrow's not playing, then they're not going to be able to go too far. So Bengals, they're definitely hoping on their side that injuries for Joe Burrow won't be too much of a concern going forward. But seeing as the game just happened yesterday, we're just going to have to see.